Okay, well let's kick this thing off because I think we have a lot to talk. You have a lot of explaining to do. So
Yes.
so today I'm joined by Jeff Baker, who was one of the co-founders of Snowboard Mag, now the editor-in-chief of the world's #1 snowboard publication. Is that what we're going with these days? I mean, what do you call it now? It's the longest standing.
It is. It is the longest standing. I actually had this conversation with Brad Fayfield a couple days ago, actually, because Snowboard would be on its 18th volume at this, or 18th year at this point, and so we were wondering, as a frequency, which is no longer called frequency, but
Right.
Galbraith has been around longer. I think in total, I don't know the number, but as it switched names, however many years ago, to Snowboard Journal, it was, I guess, technically, Snowboard would have the longest standing.
Right. So now what do you do with all that that clout that you've gained?
I don't know if the clout has really kicked in yet. And just to clarify, the title is I've been going off of. We don't actually have the crew. We've decided we do have titles, for masthead purposes and presentation and stuff like that. So Mary Walsh is actually the editor in chief.
Okay.
Mark Clavin is considered an editor. Mike Basher is an editor.
Oh, so Clavin is going to Snowboard.
Yeah,
What a kick in the nuts to Bridges, huh?
Well, no. Mark is still, he was that snowboarder,
Yeah.
and actually, I think he still might be a snowboarder.
Okay. So what is happening with Snowboarder these days? I mean, you must have your finger on the pulse of the media landscape right now.
You know what? Your guess is probably as good as mine, because I don't know if anybody really knows what's going on with Snowboarder, to be perfectly honest. And sure, I might have a little inside track here or there, hear a story or two, but what's going to happen or what the future holds, I think, is anybody's best guess right now. Kind of going back to last fall when, Bridges and I started talking quite a bit, and, Pat was still on staff, as it was everybody. And then, but the furloughs were coming, through the pandemic there. And what was going to come from those furloughs was also anybody's best guess. But I think everyone on staff got the furlough notice, minus Mark Clavin. But so he stayed on as an editor to continue posting to the Snowboarder. Instagram feed is still firing for sure, and that is
Solopreneur, if you will.
Title, last man standing. But yeah,
right.
Snowboarder still is the juggernaut as far as, by far the largest reach and followers, but without really a staff, I don't really know. There's been some rumors floating around of what may or may not happen to not just Snowboarder, but the whole grouping of magazines and the AMI group.
Is Surfer still around, or the other magazines still around, or what are they doing?
I think so. So I don't know the legality or the technicality of it, but yeah, Surfer, Powder, Transworld Skate, Bike. I believe all those titles are still really in business under the AMI ownership, but
not printing mags, not staffed up.
Mags at this point, I think all of them are just social only, and not even. I don't even. I should probably know this, but I don't even think that they're posting content to the websites anymore. But
really?
I could be wrong about that. But
just trying to keep some kind of value going, basically.
Yeah. Whether they want to, sell off the group to a buyer or some other plan, I don't know. That's what everybody's waiting to see. But at this point, I don't know how many people are actually anxiously waiting, because since I'd say last year, I don't know, 2+ years ago when they shut down Transworld Snowboarding, and then and then last fall, as when Pat Bridges was Snowboarder magazine, and Pat's no longer at the helm, it's like, how viable is the business anymore, and so, credit to Pat, for, holding down that mag for 30, gosh, how many years is it?
No, it's like 20 years anyway. 20. Yeah.
20 years. but yeah. I mean, the magazines is only as good as its crew and its staff. And when your leader, and when they let the leader go, and Pat, it's how viable really is it anymore? So yeah, I don't think there's really too many people that expect too much of snowboarder moving forward. From it's probably fans and also industry support.
Okay.
But
well, let's get into the rebirth of Snowboard Mag, because I'm kind of curious how that all came about. Because I mean, I have some questions and I'll ask them just about magazines. But I'm curious, how did you like reignite the snowboard flame, if you will?
Well, I mean, I think first off, before even the flame was relit, for your audience, obviously you were the true founder of Snowboard Mag. I want to make that real clear. While I was
I'm aware. It's okay. It's okay.
I know you're aware. But yeah, obviously, you and I starting that, and Aaron Draplin and Gary Hansen and J2 and a few others, that was back in 2004. But yeah, I mean, that was obviously a super, super exciting time. So it was, I just first and foremost wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, snowboard was you and I and the support staff. I always say, you and I and Draplin were the kind of the, the three legs of the tripod there. And then, kind of getting that thing off the ground. But I'll definitely give you credit for writing the business plan and coming up with the vision of it, and understanding the niche of what was missing in the media at that time. Transworld Snowboarder, and this was now early 2000s, but they had they obviously were the number one and number two respectively, leaders in the snowboarding media globally, and they both did a fantastic job of what they did, and their audience was absolutely catering to the pro riders and the aspiring pro riders, and very specific audience, and the best photography, the best riders, and had all the advertiser support. So they were truly the leaders, and so it was. But again, I'll give you credit for coming up with understanding that there was still a void in the media world where a third kind of big player could come in and not necessarily compete with Transworld Snowboarder, but reach a whole different audience of that those two mags weren't really catering towards. And I actually remember back when you and I were both originally at Snowboarder Mag, you were the editor, I was the photo editor back in those days. But I remember our boss Norm Garrett always challenged us to be to say like, hey, we're speaking to the 90 or 95%, or sorry, the 5%, the pro riders, and how do we speak to and reach the other 90, 95% audience? Your just your average snowboarder, your weekend warriors, the people who are, just the occasional enthusiasts that just love snowboarding. They might go one day a year, they might go 10, 20, 40 days a year, 50 days a year, but they're not pros, they're not aspiring to be pros. How do we speak to them? They're the ones that are such an important part of the audience. They're the ones who are really walking into the snowboard shops, buying the product, really supporting, the industry and growing it and giving people like us jobs, so, I think you knew that obviously, and that was, I think, the kind of the genius in figuring out that niche of the sort of the snowboard mag philosophy and how it could enter the market. Let Transworld Snowboarder duke it out, number one, let them fight out, fight it out in the corner right there, and we can come in there and be the, call it number three at the time, and have our own little piece of the pie without getting in the ring with the two heavyweights. And,
well, we were automatically in the ring because we were fighting over limited ad budgets, and I think that's probably still the case today, probably more so than ever. I mean, I think that things are even tighter now than they were then. They weren't that tight then, but it's interesting because, whether or not, you are a direct competitor as far as you're making a parody product, you certainly were duking it out as far as like there's one pool of ad money that you're drawing out of.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, you're right. I remember the joke. We used to go to the trade shows back then, and we wanted to make the T-shirts that says, we're number three. We're number three.
Right.
Claiming, we were fine. We were starting an independent title, which was not Transworld or Snowboard at the time. They were, both owned separately by big corporate entities.
Nor was it easy in comparison to working at Snowboarder, or I assume Transworld. It was a lot more work.
Starting Snowboard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think Bridges is about to find that out. You already know, but Bridges is about to find out exactly how tough it can be.
Yeah, it is. It was no easy task. I remember at the very beginning when you came to me and you presented the business plan and walked me through the idea of the concept of Snowboard Mag, where its place could be in the industry and how we could build this business. It was, it was just exciting. It was an exciting time, and we all, having worked at Snowboarder for a handful of years, it's, it has its pluses and minuses for sure, and those are some of my most happy favorite years of my entire life working at Snowboarder. It was so exciting working with you and Bridges and Aaron Joplin. I mean, gosh, what an amazing all-star team.
Right. Wasn't like real work.
It didn't feel like work because we were just enjoying it so much and we were doing all what we loved. For me, it was the photography and the photo editing. I just absolutely loved it. I soaked it. I was still new in media and I just soaked it all up like a sponge and just loved every single minute of it and learned so much about design, having known nothing about design prior to that, sitting around Joplin and sitting over his shoulder, watching him design pages and watching his hand dip in the little snap jar as he fueled the machine as he designed pages.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely different, and then obviously starting Snowboard when it's all on you, it from a financial point of view and all the work of course fell on us. And that was one of my biggest takeaways in doing Snowboard is how challenging it was just from raising capital investment from the beginning, which there was very little of it.
Yeah. Too little.
Yeah, and so that presents problems just on its own. I was listening to an interview did with Bob Carlson recently, and he made a comment about how challenging starting a business, growing a business. When your business grows and it's become successful, how much of a problem that can be, and the challenges that are associated with it. It's good to be, doing well and growing, but it presents all sorts of new challenges that you don't see those when you first begin because you just have your eyes set on building a beautiful magazine and great writing and shooting stories and then you become a product of your own. The success becomes, the challenge is keeping up with that pace, and obviously we all know that, and that was a big learning lesson for me, just understanding that, you can create something, you can grow it, and we grew pretty quickly. And had a lot of industry support, a lot of the, just writers to, the pros, and everybody really loved what we were putting out at the beginning, the first couple of years of Snowboard. And in growing, they expect more and they want you to keep doing more. They love it, so they want more. And then to grow, to be able to deliver more we really had hardly any money behind us, right? So it was just trying to pay the bills. We weren't even paying ourselves, right?
We did pay ourselves a little bit.
A little bit here and there.
A little bit.
Yes, and at the beginning it was slower, and then it gradually, got more consistent. But it was, there's the challenges of growth. I think all good challenges to have, because it's better that we had those challenges versus coming out and swinging and a missing where nobody liked the product we were putting out, right? So it's a good problem to have.
That was Future's cross to bear. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a dick. Those guys are cool or whatever. There was another mag that competed with us called Future Snowboard, and they had all the budgets and all the stuff, and we didn't have that. But we competed, and I would say we succeeded against them, Yeah,
I mean, not to say they didn't have passion behind them, but,
they did.
And another big lesson that we learned was that when you don't have the money in the behind you, we really did it for the passion. We really wanted to do it because we really wanted to. None of us, I didn't sign on to Snowboard Mag. I don't think you wrote the business plan expecting, here's a plan how we're all going to get rich. And that's not how you presented it. it would have been nice if we got rich, but that certainly was not the goal. And I signed on strictly because of the excitement level. I'd been a snowboarder about 5 years at that point, and I had kind of reached my peak because I was the photo editor, but I was not going to be the editor, nor was I striving to be the editor. I was not trying to get into the sales or the business side of it. That part was handled by Chief Mike Newsnell, and it's like, so I was kind of, I did what I could do, and I felt like I had built a pretty good photo program at Snowboarder and brought on a bunch of great photographers and guys like E. Stone and Oli Gagnon and Vincent Skoglund, Danny Zapalak, bunch of great guys, that I was really proud of what we'd accomplished. And so, while working with some other like original mentors, Trevor Graves, Justin Hostenek, folks like that too. So I was just living a dream of, being able to work with all my kind of photography heroes that I looked up to, and then being able to, kind of work with, kind of the next generation of the super pro snowboard photographers. But anyway, my point was, sorry, I got off topic there, but we did snowboard because we just had the passion for it. That's really, we just were loving what we were doing, and we wanted to create something. So it was, we were driving because we loved what we were creating, and not for the money. And so, your motivations become a little bit different when you're doing it because you just like it versus, hey, I'm doing this for the money. And that was a big lesson that I guess going back to when I first fell in love with snowboarding in the early 90s was that I never started out like, oh, God, I really like this snowboarding. I'm sure I'll make a career and I'll make a bunch of money, lifelong career out of it. That was never even crossed my mind. I just did it because I love snowboarding. And then as I got into photography more, I just loved doing that too. So I just kept doing what I loved.
Yeah. Let's talk about those early days and the effort that it took. I mean, I was there with you, but let's talk about like that kind of like monumental effort. Cause I just remember like anytime I'd be depressed, like when making Snowboard Mag, I would just look up the annual reports from Future Mag and realize they were burning through our entire initial investment every 2 weeks. And was like, okay, we're onto something here because we're here like 2 years later anyway. So I shouldn't feel too bad. But yeah, I mean, it's like we didn't have that kind of backbone, but we basically, in my mind at least, we compensated that just through like effort. It's like for what we lacked in money, we put forth an effort.
Absolutely. And again, I wouldn't trade those days for anything ever. But the first, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 volumes, but I'll speak to the first 2 years in particular. But we were going to Portland. You were living in Idaho. I was living in Southern California. J2 was in Salt Lake City, and then Aaron Draplin was in Portland, which is where we were designing the mag. So Aaron had just moved into his house. He got his little studio set up in his basement, and we were designing the issues around the clock, sleeping on just concrete floor. And as uncomfortable as that was, it was that's what really kind of, we cut our teeth doing that and really defined, I guess it sort of tested us of like, do we really want this? And when you're sleeping on a concrete floor, working till 3, 4 in the morning on these deadlines, you ask yourself, is this what I want? And all of us definitely wanted it. And that's why we continued to do that. And, and maybe like a year later, Aaron got some like blankets and pillows.
Right. Huge upgrade.
I think the first year I remember sleeping literally right on the concrete floor in the basement. And I think I had like my backpack as a pillow, no blanket. And it was super hot in the summer. And then as we got to the fall, it was super cold and you just never were comfortable, but it didn't seem to matter all that much.
And Draplin would never wear pants. It was just awkward.
90 degrees in the summer or 30 degrees in the winter. He still got his underpants on sitting behind that computer.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was pretty crazy. I mean, just like, I know for myself, I got very little sleep for years, basically. And it wasn't pretty much sustainable in my mind anyway, that amount of work. So it was pretty tough, but it ended up going to the point where we were able to sell it to Free Skier, Storm Mountain Publishing. Is that what it's still called? Storm Mountain?
Storm Mountain Media, I think they've changed the name to, yeah.
Storm Mountain Media. And then you kept on going at Snowboard. How long were you there for, by the way?
Well, let's see. Started in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
The acquisition happened in 2006. And then I think I kept work. Then I think we worked remotely as an employee. We became employees of Storm Mountain Publishing. And then I think we worked remotely for about a year or so. And then I eventually moved out to Boulder, Colorado, as did the rest of the crew. And then I think I was there until right around 2010, because that was, I remember my very last assignment that I did for snowboard was going to the Vancouver Olympics and covering that and shooting that. Mm-hmm. So that was 2010, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that was the, you were there doing the announcing with Richards, I think it was. That was cool. I just was there to shoot photos of it. And, but yeah, that was my last assignment. And I think after that point, I think I resigned and moved on. And that's when I started Access Media with Mike Basher.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Got a little noise in the background noise.
Sounds like you got a dog or something.
Yeah, ceiling fan.
Oh, okay.
But so it was, I guess, in 2010 of when I resigned from Snowboard Mag. Mike Bash and I started the Access Media, which is what we're still doing to this day, which is more or less just kind of a full service media agency, is what I call it these days. Mm-hmm. Just take on all sorts of kind of projects that we, that photography based, custom publishing projects, you name it. And that to answer your question, that's my current, as far as Snowboard Mag relaunching, I think it started about a year ago when I actually called Brad Faithfield out of the blue one day, just because Snowboard Mag had been a little bit of a hiatus for a couple seasons, and then he was nothing was really happening with the brand. So I called him just like, hey, what are you doing with this? Because I had I have a couple ideas that just have always been in my head about just some kind of custom publishing projects, photo projects that I've just been kicking in the back of my head for quite a few years that I just wanted to do, get kind of back to my roots with photography. And so I hit him up like, hey, what are you doing with your Instagram feed? Because I was, I have some ideas, just some fun stuff I want to do, really just kind of passion project stuff. And, how can, is there a way I can get a hold of your Instagram following?
Can I have your followers, please?
Yep. And the answer was a firm no. And
right. He's like, that's the only thing that's valuable left.
So that's when where the conversation began of like, well, he's like, no, I'm not really willing to kind of part off the pieces of the business, but would you be interested in kind of relaunching it, and at that time, I knew that Transworld Snowboarding had already been shut down by its parent company, about 2 years ago now, I guess that is, and then things were unstable at Snowboard, not Snowboarder the business, but just the grouping of magazines. I'm not even sure what they even call it.
The owners were unstable.
Yeah, AMI.
Yeah.
And so, and what they were going to do with all those titles was unpredictable. So, the future of Snowboarder did not look terribly optimistic. And so, I kind of entertained the conversation with Brad just to see like where it may go. And then that turned into just really loose conversations for handfuls of months of, do we want to do something? Do we want to get it going? Fast forward, several months, and that turned into a kind of a model where, he's basically partnering with Access Media to, as the magazine is relaunched or revamped here, it's, Access Media is taking on the kind of the onus of, kind of redirecting the business and relaunching it, and so yeah, it's yet another client under Access Media that we're really excited about, and it's obviously a huge one. It's really a full-time job, and so yeah, Snowboard Mag is officially underway as of I think the first press release went out around July 1st of this year, just announcing kind of the sort of the rebirth of it, and under this new partnership between Storm Mountain Media and Access Media, and so I rallied the team together, including my partner in Access Media, which is Mike Basher, who was with Snowboard Mag from day one. Mark, I'll credit you, of course, for finding Mike as a talent, way back in the day.
Yeah.
And he was involved with snowboards from issue one. And I think he put in how many, I think
quite a long time.
Writing stories, shooting photos. He worked for free, for snowboard, and for 2 years, maybe, was it?
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah, I mean, that was his vacation, like the very first mag we put together. He literally took his vacation from Motocross Action magazine and slept on Draplin's floor, which I really respected, actually, that he was like, oh, no, this is my time off. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to make another mag for free.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. He was passionate for sure.
Yeah, and again, coming back to that, it's just like the passion that he had it, we all had it, and that was, so he fit right in from the beginning, and just knowing that, that's the type of guy we're looking for, to work with us, who were in it for all the same reasons we were.
Yeah.
So as of July of this year, Snowboard Mag was rebirthed, and we've been working for the last couple of months, kind of baby steps of kind of getting the kind of pieces together. So built a team, and as I mentioned earlier, Mary Walsh was as editor-in-chief. Mark Clavin, title as editor. Mike Basher, also title as editor. Lucky Lopez is doing sales and
snake
marketing.
Oil.
Well, I'll say, jokes aside, Lucky is one of those great guys that, I've known Lucky for a super long time. He was my roommate from way long before either of us were involved in the industry, just in Mammoth. We both got our start there as snowboard instructors, actually. And then, but yeah, he's been a great salesman, just in that, he's been able to, get his sales job done, have his clients really believe in him. And not just peddling, but just smut, but just like really, having really honest and real relationships with their advertisers, and always comes through for them too. So there's a great deal of trust there, and so he's really developed into a really great asset there. But of course, he started the same way, Snowboard Mag as well, probably around year 4, perhaps.
No, he was there when I was there.
So year 3, maybe. I think he just we got him going on some real entry level sales, and that was entertaining.
But he always did a good job.
Yeah,
he always did a good job.
Yeah,
so
and, so that's the team we had. We talked to Aaron. I think my first call after the agreement was made to relaunch this thing was to Aaron, to tell him what was up. And of course, not that I expected Aaron to lay out the magazine, because I know how famous and busy he is these days. But at least we wouldn't touch. He built the logo, he built the branding, he laid out every single page we ever made, and every media kit, every T-shirt graphic, everything we did, and he made us all look really good. And it was just a pleasure and honor working with him for so many years. But I wouldn't do anything until I talked to him first and just let him know what was going on. And so, that was cool, because if nothing else, it reignited just these conversations with Aaron to reminisce the old days, and then give us some direction of, from friendly advice of how to take it in the moving forward. He did get involved as far as we did do a redesign of the logo and some fonts and stuff, and that was all on Aaron, because it was again, he built our little baby, and we trust him to kind of steer us in the right direction moving forward. So Aaron redesigned the logo, and then gave us some direction as kind of our general art direction, and then we've got Dave Staggerwell, Davey Staggs, who we had worked with for a handful of years at Snowboarder. So he's the designer, putting the pages together. So he we laid out the whole first issue, and that's at the presses right now. So we'll have those first issues in a few days, really.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I have no doubt the magazine will be beautiful in terms of like the crew that you've assembled are going to make a nice product. But the question is like, how are you guys printing it? How are you distributing it? Like, I mean, for me, magazines were always about this economy of scale, of achieving a value for your ad dollar where you're getting like a cost per thousand of, let's say, like maximum $20. And now my understanding is like the cost per thousands for magazines are up around $500 or $600. And I just wanted to hear you kind of weigh in on like, how are you printing it? How are you distributing it? And how are you going to give that value back to the advertisers in terms of it being like a solid investment of their money in terms of reaching that audience?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I think my first response would be that this is not even a magazine business anymore. It's, I guess we call it media, but the print magazine is not what we're leading the charge with. It's not what we're leading the sales pitch with. So yeah, I would agree with that. The CPM of the magazine, the value of the magazine is higher than what it once was. But again, that's not what's driving the business. It's not what's driving the readership either, right? So, obviously social, I don't know how obvious, but yeah, social is absolutely the kind of the leader in that. And that's where you don't reach as many people as you once did with a print magazine, 10, 20 years ago. You are reaching, you do have a large reach via, social in particular. Instagram, I think, is still the leader as far as pushing content out there socially and being able to maximize that kind of the value for the advertiser. And and the advertisers are, we have a really open relationship with them, and that we're not trying to push what our agenda is, but rather we really work very closely with the advertisers to really hear about what they're trying to accomplish. And kind of establish a strategy based around that, without giving away, all the secrets. But basically, I tell the story lots of times about how, so a handful of years after doing Snowboard Mag and selling it, and then leaving and starting Access Media, what happened to me after that was, I got the call to come back to Snowboarder magazine as the publisher was the title, as they call it, and then they changed the titles, now called general manager. So I was the general manager of Snowboarder for a few years, and then a couple of years after, so that was around 2011, and then did that, went back to work with Bridges and T-Bird and Mike Yoshida, Huggy, all these fantastic people. And then a couple of years later, the company acquired Transworld. And that was a big, huge shakeup. And then at that point, I became the general manager of Transworld as well. So here I was, general manager of Transworld and Snowboarder, managing like almost an impossible task. But without going into too much, boring you with too many details there, what was amazing was that at any given time, when you're running Transworld and Snowboarder both, and you're running all the sales, all the advertising, I had a sales team beneath me, but it was like, a lot of money we were trying to, our revenue goals, and you had no choice but just to say yes to everybody. I would say we had between 100 and 150 advertisers at any given time, and man, like, go try to make 150 advertisers happy all at the same time. And yes, we had a great team of Pat Bridges and his crew supporting Nick Hamilton and his crew at Transworld, and the best of the best working at this. But between all of us, our sales team and both editorial crews, you can't keep 150 advertisers happy. Nor do you always feel like you've let brands down, because I know what I'm capable of. I know how much effort I want to give to the brands and the advertisers. They've invested a lot of money in you, and when your bandwidth can only give any brand 40% of your time, when you want to give them 110%, you're just left feeling a little bit empty. So yeah, that's why with the relaunch of Snowboard, I've learned a lot from that, and and kind of taking the opposite approach of like, hey, we're just going to work with a smaller handful of brands. That way we can really give it our all and really take them on as true partners. Because we always called advertisers like partner. You want to create these partnerships, but the reality is a partnership is only as good as the amount of effort you can put into it. And, so now that with Snowboard, we have a much smaller pool of advertisers that we call our true partners. We really do have the bandwidth to bring that much more value. So while the reach is maybe a little, per your point, if the reach is different and it's smaller in print, but it makes up for it in social, but there's a huge value that's also really hard to put a dollar amount on of how much attention that you're really giving the brands and really working with them. So.
$5. Oh, did I just put a dollar value on what?
So it's really been cool because it's really made us, and honestly, why I also chose to get back on with Snowboard Mag and relaunch it was to really try to help rethink the model. How can it be different? If the standard media model that Transworld and Snowboarder followed for 35, years is now failed.
Yeah.
Has been failing slowly for a lot of years. You have to learn from that. You have to study that, learn from it, and know how to kind of adjust. And I say, I think the snowboarding media is in a really cool place right now, I think, because, I always say, as much as we love Transworld, as much as we love Snowboarder, I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for Snowboarder Mag, and maybe you could say the same too, and it really helped create us, get us to where we are now.
I wouldn't have ruined my career without Snowboarder Mag. I could say that.
So yeah, it's as much as we love them, it's the the downside of working for a gigantic publishing company, and this is not, I'm not talking about Snowboarder and Transworld specific. I'm talking about the big corporations that own a blanket of
the publicly traded companies that own a bunch of magazines, and you're just like one little cog in the machine.
Yeah. When I was there, it was owned by a couple different companies, but at that time, it was owned by the you even forget it's gone through so many acquisitions, you forget the name of the owners, but it basically owned all the car titles: Motor Trend,
Peterson, EMAP, AMI. I mean, there's a lot of them actually.
Yeah, Source Interlink was the name mostly of the years I was there. But yeah, you're a really tiny, like to your point, a little tiny cog, and the Motor Trend and the Car and Driver. Those are the biggest dogs, and so they got the attention, and you're just, you're a little piece of that puzzle. So, but yeah, so anyways, media I think is in a really cool spot right now because, in the unfortunate demise of Transworld and, Snowboarder, it's allowed for independent media to be relevant. And I think, instead of chasing.
Okay, but before you say it's relevant, is it relevant if it doesn't reach a macro audience? That's like one of my questions is like, I have the feeling that there's a lot of echo chamber media going on right now where people are talking to the people who are already the true believers and not reaching out to this new kind of potential audience of participants in the sport. And so if you're talking, are you talking to a new audience? Are you talking to the existing audience of snowboarders? And how are you making the sport of snowboarding appeal to more people?
Yeah, great question. That's you can go in lots of different directions with that. I think that over the years, like Snowboard Mag had created an audience with its with its unique to itself, right? So the first task is to be able to appreciate who the Snowboard Mag audience is, and and give them the content that they expect to see. And then how do you drive new eyeballs? It's like the, you used to say what's the common denominator between all snowboarders, whether you're a first time beginner or a super pro. We all need the product. We all need a snowboard, boots and bindings and some clothes, to go snowboarding, and a place to go snowboarding, and some snow, ideally. But, again, that's been the mantra that, that quite honestly, you started from the beginning of, to have the product being the leading voice and storyline behind Snowboard Mag, because that is the common denominator that can speak to any audience, the current
Sure.
audience, but to your point, a new audience, right? So, uh, you know, so telling those product stories, Snowboard Mag now is kind of going back to the roots. After you and I and we all like kind of left the brand in the 2010-ish, give or take, for each of us. But I think over the years, I had some really good people that worked for the mag and kept it going. But I think it kind of lost. It got strayed from the original direction that the business was started.
Yeah.
And that was to pay homage to that other 90% audience, the people who are just, again, the non-aspiring professionals that are spending their good hard-earned money to get up to the mountain every weekend. Maybe they're just going once a year on a family vacation, so our job was to educate them as far as, what the best product is and the best places to go snowboarding, and tell some of the stories that are inspiring that might make them, develop their own roots and kind of passions in the sport. So, yeah, I'd say that's, I think that's still the common denominator, all these years later, of to try to just, snowboarding is really fun, first and foremost. Yeah. And so I want to have fun launching this business. And if I wasn't having fun, I certainly wouldn't. I'd be the first to call it out, and I would be the first to raise my hand and say, it's not for me anymore. But it is fun, and I think that's also the responsibility for guys like us who've enjoyed a really long career in snowboarding to kind of share all of our knowledge of what we've gone through for so many years, and pass that on to the next generation and the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think that's a responsibility, for guys like us in our 40s, to ensure that the future of the snowboarding industry and the state of snowboarding in general is in good hands, for the future. Because certainly we're not going to be doing it forever.
Yeah. Interesting. So now how are you going to distribute the new mag? Because it isn't easy to actually get magazines out there. How are you going to get them into people's hands? Because I think that is one of the primary challenges these days, beyond making a beautiful product. I think that's actually the easier part than connecting with that audience where they are,
Yeah. So I'm not having it magazine not come out yet. I don't know if I want to divulge we have a couple of little secrets about how we're going to distribute it that are differentiated from our competitors, and it's going to be distributed in
now
new
that
ways.
They've adopted the Snowboard Mag model. You got to keep it under your hat. How do you feel about that, by the way? The fact that Bridges basically copied the model that I created to develop Snowboarder, and now you're coming back with Snowboard, and it's like, wait a minute, that was my model. What are you doing here? That's how we did it.
Okay, yeah. I had a conversation recently with a person in the industry, and that very topic came up, and I was being my typical self, being real nice and cordial and diplomatic about it, and the guy just called bullshit. And he's just like, Baker, you're just too fucking
Hey, I don't believe you. You're pissed.
Why don't you just say what you're trying to say here? And I got a laugh out of it because, yes, I will absolutely give you full credit for, for your audience, your listeners out there in the audience. Snowboard Mag, when it started, Trans One Snow. This is early 2000s, right, where the newsstand model was still relevant. You can buy magazines on a newsstand, and the business relied on selling magazines off a newsstand, and that was kind of the model back then. Obviously, maybe it's hard to even understand that right now. But
what's a newsstand?
What's a bookstore? But
right.
not having the luxury to be on the newsstands, because it's very expensive to put a magazine on a newsstand just to be able to sell it, and it's just a losing proposition all the way around, because it's expensive to put a magazine on a newsstand. Not that many copies get bought off newsstand, so you as a publisher, you're just usually losing money off of a newsstand, right? So
right.
what was the differentiating point? And, again, I want to give you credit for thinking of the outside that box to figure out how can we get the magazines into the hands of people that, knowing that we can't get on the newsstands or we can't afford to be on the newsstands, I should say. And that was to distribute the magazine to the core retail, right? And that's and make it a free commodity. And the core retail shop is where real snowboarders were shopping. They're going in there to hang out. There's a culture there. And
now they go to backcountry and Evo. So there's your new deal right there, getting it into their hands. Yeah.
So there's such a culture in the snowboard shop. Before working at Snowboarder, I worked at Wave Raven Mammoth and managed there, and I learned so much about the retail side of the business prior to getting into the media. So that was, I saw that light very clearly of, there's a culture of people hanging out in snowboard shops just to hang out, watch snowboard videos, hang out, talk about snowboarding, hang out with employees, loiter basically.
Right.
But but that's a valuable customer. People are coming to the shops to buy stuff too. So so that was the model then, and and Bridges will attest, and he will give you and us credit for establishing that distribution model. He took it to even a bigger level at Snowboarder, in the tail end of Snowboarder there, and distributing the mag out to the retail shops. So. That's,
unfortunately, there are only 180 shops left when he went about doing it. So it wasn't like the 600 that we were reaching back in the day. It's kind of sad, actually, to me that that I do completely agree and believe that the culture of snowboarding lives at these specialty retailers. And yet it's like, where are those specialty retailers today? And then how does that culture get translated through the backcountry.coms, the Evos, the mail order type places that seem like they're kind of dominant right now or dominating like the volume of sales anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm in San Clemente, California right now, and like I had a friend call me the other day and he said, "Hey, where can I buy a snowboard?" And I thought, and I was like, and I thought more, and I thought, I'm not even sure around here. There's just a few, a handful of places where you can actually go into a snowboard shop and buy some product. I'm not talking about the REIs. I'm talking about,
where there's experts and people who know what they're talking about and have invested their own personal passion into it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. And so it's a challenge. So, anyway, to answer your question about distribution, well, Snowboard, I think, not I think, but definitely invented the core retail distribution model. Bridges has done a good job and kind of growing, taking that philosophy and growing it and kind of taking it for his own. But that's not going to be the model for snowboard distribution moving forward. I can tell you that much. We will absolutely
evolution.
Yeah, you got to evolve that, right? So to me, that model was great in the middle 2000s, and I think there's a smarter distribution strategy nowadays that Snowboard will absolutely go into, some of the main retailers, because I still believe in that. I still going to retail shops. I have my philosophies. Whenever I walk into a snowboard shop, I always buy something just to support you. Just do your part to buy something to support it. I still spend actually quite a bit of money at Wave Rave these days, but my kids need a lot of gear. But so that'll be a portion of the distribution, but it's kind of thinking outside that box, how to reach a new customer and a whole new batch of readers that aren't the aspiring pro, but who are just as passionate, and snowboard just as many days. We can kind of reveal some of those channels a little bit later once the magazine comes out. But I can assure you, it's thought really hard about that because again, the print mag is not the lead. It's not the lead part of our sales pitch, but it's still your trophy piece, right? You put all this effort behind making this magazine, and you buy this expensive paper, and you spend a lot of time making the print magazine, and it's so valuable and so beautiful, and I still believe in it wholeheartedly. And so you just have to be really smart, and you've always taught me, what's our point of differentiation? How are we going to be, thinking ahead of the curve and also just not just rely on what worked in the past, because what worked in the past was the past. We have to figure out a model that works from now.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a challenge, I would say, today with just like and it's not so much on the creative side. People know how to take photos, write stories, lay it out, and make it look beautiful. It's really just getting it into people's hands and then getting those people to actually read it and to digest it and to have it influence them, and hopefully purchasing the products that are like advertised in those pages, because that's really the goal of advertising, right? And if advertising is paying for it, you got to make those people want and buy that product in the mag.
Yeah, and although the first issue is not out yet, it will be in the next couple of weeks from now, and we're in the tail end of September right now. But I can assure you that the quality will be, it'll be as high a quality as you can, I think, imagine it to be. And
I could imagine pretty high quality.
I think it'll be right up there with your expectations.
Okay, good.
I have super high expectations for print, because again, if you're going to do it right. And, I couldn't tell you how many times I was so frustrated, and knowing you can do, when I worked at Snowboarder and Transworld, knowing that we had the talent, the ability, and all the drive between all of our staffs, Bridges' crew, Nick Hamilton's crew, and, all these great people, we wanted to make a better product than we were able to do. And there was so many barriers you just could not cross. You couldn't, I even went in there at one point and lobbied and figured out a whole model that they could upgrade the paper. We could make better looking magazines with a higher quality. But yeah, there was just, there's a hierarchy of that whole company, that relationships, I'm sure, with printers that maybe resulted in some kickbacks, and they certainly didn't want to hear from a punk like me, like saying, hey, if we go with this other printer, we can make a much higher quality and save money. And I was like, man, I developed a model where it was like, hey, we can make a significantly better magazine in terms of paper quality, and it's going to cost less to print. Mm-hmm. And we're going to, go with a different printer. And I almost got fired for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, those contracts, they write these like crazy long length contracts for printers because they don't want to keep shopping it around or whatever.
Yeah.
And they don't like American Web, Jeff. They don't like American Web. So are you web printing this new mag? Is it going to be a web press mag, or is it offset?
It's offset, sheet fed.
Sheet fed, okay. Yeah. So it ought to be really high quality.
Yeah, so it's basically all the from a quality standpoint, it's all the stuff that we and photographers and everybody wants to see, and again, because print doesn't have the same value as it once did, it's like, okay, if you're going to do it, again, like I said, do it right. Do it so that it will stick around, and so the days of old where you made a magazine 1 month and then a month later it was gone, or taken off a newsstand and thrown away, or what have you, obviously that doesn't work anymore. So we're making a magazine of superior quality that will stick around, not just for a month, but for an entire season or longer. Not or longer, it will stick around for longer too. So almost, just a step below a book, a hardcover book.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. We will do print. It's just going to be 2 issues, this year, I'll say that. And, that's a sustainable amount of issues, again, that advertisers don't really need more than that right now. I doubt if readers even want more than that right now. And so 2 was the number that we came up with that was, it made sense, do 2 really, really good quality issues that are going to stick around at minimum all winter, but longer, and get into the hands of the right audience.
Cool. So where do you see like the Torment mag or the Curated mag fitting into this kind of new print media marketing mix? And there's actually another one that may be coming down the pipeline too. I'm sure you've heard about that one.
Sure. Yeah.
The European one.
Yeah, I do know about that. So I said a few minutes back about how snowboarding media is in a really cool spot. I think the independent vibe is alive and well, and where the 2 big corporate beasts, Transworld and Snowboarder, are gone. So that piece of the pie has now been opened up to everybody else. So now you've got Torment, Galbraith is still doing his thing,
Yeah.
Slush, obviously, and then, independent projects from Curator to, probably several others that I don't even know about. It's allowed for the smaller, kind of media to kind of come and take a portion of that smaller piece of that bigger pie, right? That Transworld and Snowboarder really monopolized for forever, So now there's a handful of the independent media that I think are all doing something a little bit different. There's probably some crossover here and there, but it's really exciting. I've had deep conversations with the guys at Torment, and I really like what they're doing, because they've in so many ways they remind me of Mark, of you and I.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, they've got a lot of momentum. They're making a really nice product, and their passion is truly what's driving them right now. And they've called me, on a couple of occasions just for some guidance and advice, and I was happy to give it to them, because again, I told them this. What they're doing right now is reminds me of what we did, and so it's really exciting to see kind of a new batch of kind of young entrepreneurs coming in there and doing their own thing and having a new swing on, new voice, new direction, and new take on it. So yeah, I absolutely love what they're doing. But and I tell Bridges, I absolutely support what he's doing, because for once, Bridges had the same headaches that you dealt with when you were the editor at Snowboarder. They had the same headaches that we all lived through of, the corporate folks, not really allowing you to kind of run the business that you really wanted to. Now it's on him. He can call all the shots. And so, and his goals are a lot smaller than what snowboarders were, sorry. And so, I absolutely believe, and I've told this to Bridges and everyone, is that, all of our independently now, I think we can all survive and support each other. And I think that's an important thing, that, if independent media don't support each other, and if we battle each other, and we're just going to kill each other off. And in the end, the big winner is going to be Google and YouTube and Facebook.
They already are winning, because they control the platforms, basically, that all of the, that reach the people the most easily, let's say.
For sure. So, to your question earlier about, how do we reach a kind of a larger audience? And, you could also argue maybe it's not our responsibility to reach the largest audience. Maybe it's to be more kind of regional, and really speak to what we know, what we know best, and do good for that region, and so, that gets into a much bigger conversation. But, I think that, it's kind of a rebirth in so many ways in the media world, because there's so many players out there now, and I think everybody can do what they want to do and play nice.
It'll be interesting, because I think that, I got approached by that other the Portuguese media company. Yes. To start the mag here, and I was like, not actually interested. Sounds like you're trying to rehash what we've already done with less people reading it, and so I think the central challenge is really just getting people interested in reading magazines, print publications. And I think that's really the central challenge, is like making them, especially if they're not already like deeply involved in the ecosystem and already know they want to buy Burton over LibTech or the other way around or whatever, right. And taking those kind of open to buy consumers and getting them interested in magazines. And I think that probably Snowboard Mag actually has the best shot at that, of convincing new consumers or convincing consumers. But I think it's also pretty big uphill slog for all the people involved with print, just because it's like, it's not the medium that it once was, where it was the Bible. Literally there were 2 videos and 2 magazines in the entire world of snowboarding, at one point in time. And now there's 4 different publications, maybe 5, and dozens of movies. And so there really isn't like this kind of this soapbox, if you will, where Trans World before had like the loudest voice, or Mac Dog had the loudest voice with videos. And it seems like now that it's all getting kind of spread out, that it's hard to know where to look or what to kind of, to be influenced by, because there are so many smaller voices out there. And how do you like approach that as like Snowboard Mag, one of these established voices, to become this kind of like authority to people who aren't familiar with your product?
Yeah, great question. And I'll answer that by kind of going a little bit deeper into the staff that we put together. It was kind of modernizing media and being relevant to kind of the issue, the topics and the issues, what's going on in the world right now. Having a voice of Mary Walsh as the editor in chief, I can't tell you how valuable that has been. Not just to have a fresh voice, but also from a female perspective, and absolutely having her finger on the pulse of what's going on in the snowboarding world, and not just in the professional world, but from the storytelling point of view, bringing journalism really back to media, which kind of started to lose its way as so many kind of pay to play programs were established,
I kind of regret doing that back in the day, because it's like it got out of control. Not with Snowboard Mag. I don't think it ever really got out of control, but certainly people took that idea and watered it down. Maybe.
Yeah, it made a lot of money, right? So
yeah,
good on you for kind of, again, thinking of a way to kind of reinvent the buyer's guide.
It's not about money though. It's about powder. Didn't they get the memo? And how I get to more of it.
Anyway, with Snowboard, I really pride ourselves on having a really collaborative team. Mary is editor-in-chief. Mark Clavin is, an equal voice. We've got kind of put a team together that have really been a jack of all trades, and Mary can shoot. She's a great photographer. She's a great writer. She sees the big picture of snowboarding. She's good at telling and recognizing the storytelling components within the culture. Mark, same way, really talented photographer, great writer. Really versed in social media, and then you've got guys like myself, Mike Basher, still, I think to this day, I'll still call him the best, product studio photographer in snowboarding. And
yeah,
I'd say that there ever was in snowboarding. And
him and Jeff Douglas. Jeff Douglas invented it, and Basher took it forward.
Yeah, Dougie. I love Dougie. It was fun times with him, but So, our role is that, and I've been in publishing enjoyed a really long career, 20 years worth. And so, I play a role and help out when I can with writing and photography and art direction and business direction and everything, and kind of play the leadership role. But it's really great to be able to kind of pass that torch. And, in so many ways, I'd like to call it like a mentor. I mentor the rest of the crew to share all the knowledge that I've gained over a 20-year career. And I've been a student of snowboarding and snowboarding media for over 25 years, and learned so much from working at resorts, working at retail, doing media, being an entrepreneur, and just being involved for so long. And I feel like that's my personal responsibility. And I know, Mark, I think you feel the same way, of that we got to pass. Snowboarding has given us everything. And so it's our responsibility to be able to pass our knowledge and our understanding and our experiences down to the next generation. And by next generation, I mean the 20 and 30-year-olds, and then who will hopefully inspire the teenagers and younger, and it's been really, really cool and eye-opening for me too, I've got 3 kids now, and, 15, 13, and 3. And to be able to pass down what I've been able to experience in snowboarding to them, and watch the joy that snowboarding gives them as they're just making turns down the hill, and I can just enjoy a powder day, or just riding on the groomies, with the kids, and just having a blast and just watching the enjoyment. Like that's what I mean about how that's my responsibility of snowboarding, giving me everything. So, and so much joy and happiness throughout my life that I absolutely want to and need to pass that down to my kids.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about print publications, but I'm actually curious. You've said a couple of times in this interview about how that's not what you're leading with. But I would like to hear about how you're going to utilize social media, digital, to create differentiation for Snowboard Mag to reach that broad audience and connect with them. Because I think that actually is maybe, looking at the media landscape going forward, that's almost more important than holding a magazine in your hands.
Yeah, just social media doesn't ever stop, right? So print magazine comes out, you work hard and build it, and it comes out and people enjoy it. But there's a start and finish point in that. Social media obviously never stops, and the web same. So yeah, it's kind of taking the same philosophies, So the print magazine, while we're not leading with that, that sort of sets the tone of everything, the whole direction, of the business, right? So, the content that's going to show up in more regularly on the social feeds are going to be kind of curated content, that speaks that's curated and built by our staff. That's not just going to be another reposted piece of content that every other feed has currently out there. I think that was really important. Even before restarting Snowboard Mag, I took a real honest look at, from an outsider's point of view, of all the feeds out there, and so-and-so does a really good trick in some great location, and everybody picked it up and reposted the same content. And it's like, after the first time I saw it, was awesome. Second time was still okay, but the third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and seventh, and eighth, and ninth, and 10th times I saw it, I was like, what's the point? So I think it's really important, socially, is that, that we have a kind of exclusive content that we're putting out, that's directed right towards our audience, and whether it's the product stories, the personality stories, or the, location, places, stories, products, places, and personalities. That's the storytelling that we need to put out there, that is, just coming from the snowboard voice, because Snowboard Mag's audience is different than Torment's. It's different than to Flush's. It's different to the Snowboard Journal. So we got to understand who our audience is, give them the content that makes sense.
Who is your closest competitor in existing media right now? Who do you see as the closest to you?
That's a good question. Everyone has, each of the companies I just listed, all have a little bit of a nuance, to themselves, and there's certainly crossover between all of them as well. But I don't know. I like to think that we don't have any, that we don't have any competitors, because I think that if I'm doing my job right, then we're in a category of one, and we're going to make a product that's just in our, specifically, for our audience, and that's not going to cross over too much with the others.
Okay, let me ask you this. Who's the leader of snowboard media right now? It used to be Transworld. You could argue Snowboarder was knocking on that door, but who's the leader today?
That's another great question, Mark.
I'm full of it. Good questions, that is. No, or maybe something else. I don't know.
I don't think that there is a definitive leader, because when, say, Transworld was the definitive leader for so long, and you can argue maybe a couple of years Snowboarder maybe overtook them, but for the most part, call Transworld as was the undisputed champ over the 35-year history. But nowadays, I think, as everybody's kind of doing little different things, from your podcast, Bombhole's doing stuff, all the magazine style businesses from us, or what you would categorize as a magazine business / us, Torment, Snowboard Journal. I think everybody's kind of bringing something a little bit different, to where there's not a definitive leader, because I don't look to any of them as like, okay, that's the Bible, and they're going to set the pace, and everyone else is going to kind of try to do something else. So I think that's also the refreshing part about media nowadays is that it's kind of opened up without that definitive leader, i.e., Transworld and Snowboarder. You've got everybody who can kind of take a really hard and honest look at it, and come up with their own little swing, little something a little different towards it. And as a result, I think we're all contributing to a kind of a much bigger, grander voice.
Yeah, we're all broke together.
Jokes aside, I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm certainly not doing great, but what's so nice is that it does bring me back to why I started snowboarding in the first place as a broke snowboarder who did it because I loved it, not because I was trying to make a career out of it, just because I loved it. And it's an honest answer, or an honest truth that I'll say, is that it's better. I enjoy snowboarding more now, making a fraction of the money that I did working at Transworld and Snowboarder, because it's got me back to be able to appreciate snowboarding for all the reasons I fell in love with it in the first place. I love the act of snowboarding. I love shooting photos still, and I get to do that more. When I was doing Transworld and Snowboarder, I almost never snowboarded, and I sat behind the computer, and it took away the fun out of it.
Just think about how much you'd like it if you were riding Alaska.
This spring, Mark. This spring.
It is next level still. That's like, for me, that's it for me anyway. But I am curious though about this media landscape, because I do want to see like successful media outlets. For me to answer that question, I would say it would be the bomb hole. To me, they're the leader right now. Now, do they speak to everybody? No. Do they do a good job? Yes. Do they reach the most people? Yes. And so to me, that would be kind of the leader. Is it the appropriate leader? I don't know. I think it's entertaining. I think it's cool, but yeah, I mean, I think we're just in the fact that I don't consider like a publication or a video as one of the leaders in this industry is something kind of new and different. And so I am curious to see kind of how these new media, quote unquote, wars, or maybe not wars, alliances form. Because I think that there is room for multiple media outlets. That said, though, there is a finite amount of money out there to promote it, and really it comes down to some degree, is like, how can you efficiently spend your money? If you spend $10,000, you want to reach the most amount of people with the most effectiveness that you can. Yeah. And so I think that's the challenge that's really laid at your feet, laid at Bridges' feet, laid at all of the media outlets' feet, is like how to, make that marketing spend like a value where it's an investment and not just a cost of doing business, and I think that the jury is still out, at least for me, on where the how snowboarding continues to grow, or how it turns around really and starts growing again, because I don't think it's necessarily growing. I've heard some optimism for the future. However, I think that it has suffered overall for the rise of social media, if you will, as becoming kind of the dominant, I guess if I were to say a media leader, it'd be Facebook, because it's like they own Instagram, they own your algorithm, they own everyone's algorithm,
100%. Yeah.
And it's kind of challenging like that,
Yeah. To my point earlier, just that, I've had long talks with, East Stone's Bomb Hole, and, Ian Bowles at Torment and Bridges Plenty and stuff. And so, I think it's in all our best interest. And I think the interest of, real snowboarding to almost co-promote each other, to support each other, because again, like if we all fail, and if we all kill each other off or don't do it properly, then Facebook and Google will just dominate even more. And so kiss the days goodbye of walking into a shop and talking to snowboarders and getting stoked and sharing your stories and sharing the culture. That's the thing that Facebook and Google can't do, is provide a culture. And we know how important snowboarding is not just a sport; is the culture. It's what we've developed based our whole lives off of, right? So you
Yeah.
can't mimic that in an algorithm. You have to go experience that yourself. You have to go snowboarding, right? So I think our ultimate goal is to do what we do, tell the stories we can, but really we want to just get people to go snowboarding, to enjoy it for fun. That's, I think, what the Bomb Hole is doing. I think that's what you're trying to do. I think hopefully that's what Bridges and everybody else are doing, is to get people just go snowboarding, enjoy it, have fun with it. And I don't know if it needs a leader, I think competition's good. I think it's always great to have I follow basketball, and I use a lot of NBA references, but it's always easy for me to talk about. I'm a Lakers fan, but it's always easy to talk about the Lakers Celtics. The Lakers they wouldn't have their storytelling piece without their competitor, so the Celtics. And so it's important to have that kind of dialogue, and but I don't think snowboarding would be any better. So what if maybe, I think you can make a very good argument that the Bomb Hole might be the leader in media right now. I think they do reach the most people, or you could argue that, how diverse is the audience? I don't really know, but what's the difference if they're the leader, if we're the leader, if Slush is the leader, or if somebody else or Torment's the leader? Is it going to make snowboarding any more or less fun? No. So I think everyone has their responsibility to, Bomb Hole included, to make sure kids are enjoying this and get out there and go snowboard and have some fun.
Yeah, hopefully the people still find the passion that we found that made us, commit our lives to it.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, I want to actually just get a little bit into your personal backstory here. We've talked to magazines ad nauseum. We obviously have that in common, but I want to find out, just kind of about your background. I kind of know it, but for our audience, where do you come from? How do you get involved, and how do you become a magazine type of person? Let's start in the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Oh God, yeah. I wish we would have started this. It'd been a little easier. I just feel like I've been on the hot seat for the last few minutes.
I know. And now I'm cooling off right now. Taking all the pressure off.
Okay. Thank you.
I think these are important questions to be answered, though, and I think you should have to answer the hard questions from someone like me.
I would expect nothing less coming from you, Mark. And
yeah.
It's great, we could talk magazine business, media business all day long, and it's fun. I really enjoy it. So, and I know you do too. So it's so that's that. So, but yeah, my roots. I grew up in Southern California, Huntington Beach, and
you're like a ho-dad.
What's that?
You were like a ho-dad.
Ho-dad.
You had that Quasimodo style growing up.
That's the Mark Sullivan I remember.
Yeah. You were a surfer growing up in Huntington Beach.
Actually, I did not. I grew up in Huntington Beach, but I didn't even surf until I got into college, and I even barely surfed. But that's just where I happened to grow up. But I was lucky enough. My folks, when I was a kid, they had a little condo in Mammoth, and so I started going to Mammoth as a little baby. I was on skis for the first time at age 2, I think it was, and I was skied, on just about every opportunity my parents could get us up to Mammoth on weekends or holidays or what have you. I did that from probably age 2 till about 8, when my parents got divorced, and then the condo went away, and then I stopped skiing and stopped going to Mammoth. But even through that, prior to that, I was, in the summertime, we would actually relocate to Mammoth and spend the whole summer up there. So and I didn't know this at the time, but it was also during when my parents were starting to get divorced and separating and stuff. But basically, the day school let out in June, we would, my mom would take my brother and I and go up to Mammoth. We'd live up there the whole summer. So I became an avid fisherman, hiker, just enjoying the kind of the year-round mountain culture lifestyle. It was totally shaped me to who I am still today. And so, that was the early days. And then, I didn't start, to your point, I didn't start surfing and snowboarding. I started at the same time. I was 17, graduated high school, 17. And then I always wanted to snowboard. I started seeing it. And then, this was early 90s, right?
So you were skiing like all the way up through, or you just took
No,
time off after your parents divorced?
yeah, I skied from age 2 to like 8, and then
Oh,
I didn't even touch snow from like 8 until 17.
okay.
And then 17 is when I started snowboarding. And then I did start surfing that same time, but surfing was totally just like every now and again type of thing, whereas snowboarding totally engulfed me. And I would go to Big Bear. Snow Summit was the spot back then. Bear Mountain, of course, but Snow Summit was the place to be. So I rode Summit, as often as I could. And then, one or two trips through the winter to Mammoth with buddies. And that was during.
Were you going to college?
Yeah, I went to UC Irvine here in California.
What was your major? What was your major in college? Let's talk about majors and how that related to the rest of your career.
Yeah, I don't know if it related or not, maybe, but I started college. I wanted to be an optometrist. So I started as a freshman in the pre-med, and I did pretty good in high school, good enough in high school, I guess you could say. And I wanted to be an optometrist, and I just had a fascination with that for some reason. I had really good vision when I was younger, and so I remember going to optometry.
You'd make a good optometrist, son. You're like, really? You could see everything.
And I don't know if that was a prelude to, just understanding the physics of optics and how your eyeball works, and which is the same concepts of how cameras work. And maybe that was sort of the beginning phases of it. But that was what got me into college. And after a year of doing that, I realized I also started snowboarding, and I did not care about school at that point. I just wanted to snowboard every single second I had. And when you're in pre-med, you can't do that. You got to focus on your studies. And I chose snowboarding over the go becoming an optometrist.
Optometry.
So I switched majors my sophomore year into this other thing called social ecology, which was basically the easiest major. That
Your parents must have been so pleased with you at that point in time. Our son's going to be a doctor.
yeah, they're not terribly stoked. But anyways, it kind of afforded me the opportunity to kind of to stay in school there. I got done with my bachelor's degree as quickly as I could in 4 years, and then and through that time, that social ecology, the other reason why I loved it was because it gave you the option to take a lot of elective classes. And I always wanted to take photography classes in high school. And that was back in the days when they teach you in the dark room, learn how to shoot, print film, develop your film, print your film.
It's film.
Yeah, the good old days.
Right.
I wasn't able to do those classes in high school because I was in these AP, honors classes.
Pre-med classes.
Yeah. So I was always bummed on that. But so I got to college. When I switched majors, I finally got to take photography classes, and it was amazing. I just fell in love with it. I learned, black and white photography, all the stuff I couldn't do in high school. And then they taught you color printing and kind of art history and all sorts of mediums like that. And it was really, really great. So that was the beginning of my photography kind of career. So anyway,
did you start shooting photos like immediately of snowboarding? Because you were already passionate about snowboarding. You became passionate about photography. Did those things just overlap almost immediately?
Yeah, they did. So when I would go up to like I'll call it like Snow Summit or Bear Mountain, for example, I love snowboarding, and I like anybody else wanted to be a pro snowboarder too. But I knew early on I didn't have that didn't have the skill to make that happen. But I just love snowboarding, So I would go up with my friends, and I'd go snowboard like the first half of the day, and then the second half, I'd go to the car, grab my camera, and I'd shoot pictures of my friends for the second half of the day. Because I didn't want to shoot the whole day, but I also, if I snowboarded all day, then I didn't get to shoot photos, and I felt kind of like I missed out there as well. So I usually split up my days kind of doing both, and really love that. And so after college, I graduated and I moved immediately to Mammoth. I got a job as a snowboard instructor. It was my first kind of like real job, I guess you could say, like full-time job. And that was really cool. I learned a ton, got to be on snow all day. It was
Is that good? Because I have this kind of perception that if you're a snowboard instructor, you're on the mountain all day, but you're not actually riding for yourself. You're like sitting there going 1 mile an hour teaching a beginner. Is it like that, or do you actually get to enjoy riding? Was that like a good way to be a snowboard bum, I guess is the question.
It's a way to be a snowboard bum. It's not the way I would suggest being a snowboard bum, because you nailed it. Like, your day is made up of teaching beginners all day, every day. And I cannot tell you how many times I would sit there on the bunny slope at Mammoth on a powder day, and I'm watching my buddies who didn't have jobs or work night crew or something, something like that. And I'm just watching the top of Mammoth open up, and they're just ripping powder lines all the way down. And I'm picking up people off the ass on the beginner slope all day long.
Right.
And it was painful. And so yes, I loved working for Mammoth. Yes, I got a season pass. Yes, I got to be on the snow all day long, every day. But and you had ride breaks here and there. But that's not the way. If you want to be really, maximizing your time on hill, making turns, that's not the way to do it.
Yeah, it seems like it would be teasing you, like your friends riding by, being like, "Woohoo, best day ever!" And you're like, "Here, falling leaf. Here you go." You know?
Yeah, my coworker Lucky Lopez, he worked the night crew, and he showed us how to do it the right way. He worked 4 p.m. till, I don't know, 2 a.m. or whatever, and he rode every single powder day.
Yeah,
and that was really cool. So it wasn't until I did that for my first year. The second year, I got hired at Wave Rave and met Steve Clausen, and he gave me an opportunity to start working there. And I always admired the shop when it first opened up back in the day, and it was always a dream to work there. And so I got hired there, and that's when I immediately quit the instructing thing and worked there full time. And talk about a game changer! Learning a whole nother side of the industry from the retail side of it. But I was encapsulated in that culture, the snowboarding culture. You can talk about snowboarding products all day. You can hang out with your shop employees and talk about your days on the hill, your customers coming in who are just as amped as you are, and you can get them stoked and helping them get geared up with new product. There's actually people who are really into it and passionate about it. Guys like myself, Mike Basher, who really care about the product stuff. It's like, man, there's a thrill and excitement in really getting, new snowboarders geared up, because you just know that they're like, oh my gosh, I got this. I got my fix. I got this product I want, and the fun that they're about to have. So that was really cool. And then, in about a year after that, I got upgraded to manager and buyer, and became one of the general managers of the shop for a few years. And honestly, I thought I'd be in Mammoth forever. And I always told myself, like, I guess I'm gonna be in Mammoth for the long haul, unless that dream job came around. And then, sure enough, the dream job came offering, which was Snowboarder Mag. And
I thought you were an intern first.
I was a photo assistant, and I always make sure I give I owe my entire career to Rob Zaleski, who Rob.
Yeah.
Rob was my buddy in Mammoth, and we just he was a local, and in the summer times he came hang out with George Cavallo and Rob Campbell and stay with them in the summer down in San Diego. And he told me that Snowboarder was looking for a photo intern / assistant, and he said I should apply, and I totally didn't think I was qualified, and he said I was, and next thing I knew, I got the job there. And that's when I met you, Mark, and but it was interesting time, because I left Mammoth and got to go work at Snowboarder Mag 3 days a week, $7.50 an hour.
What did you do with the other 4 days that you had not working there? Just curious. Because I was there working 7 days a week, probably, or close to it.
Yeah, I think I nothing much.
Just waiting for the next shift, basically.
Probably, yeah. And but it was really great. I definitely questioned. Okay, well, obviously, I can't make a living working 3 days a week at $7 an hour. And so after that first year, we did one complete cycle of the print mag. That was 1999, and first issue I worked on was the Mark Frank Montoya guest editor issue, and man, what an awesome time that was!
Yeah,
to meet Mark, and to see all the antics that went down. And but much like working at the shop, it was I knew nothing about media or magazines at the time, so all the elements of it was all brand new to me. So I just couldn't get enough of it. So yeah, I just learned as much as I could. I learned so much from George Cavallo and teach me about photo editing and being a kind of a critic of snowboard photography and how to kind of envision a magazine coming together. And then, and you, Mark, were you were by far the most diehard snowboarder of the bunch back then. So, that's how our friendship began, because you were a lot more passionate about snowboarding than the rest of the staff there. So, and me just moving down from Mammoth, we were on the same level there. So that's what kind of started it all. And then a year later, the .com boom happened, and then most of the staff left, minus you and Chief and Karen.
I was there for the riding. I was like, you mean I get to go keep traveling to snowboard? Sweet.
Yeah. So to bring it full circle, I mean, that next year when the majority of the staff left, you were the senior editor at the time. You became the editor, and you got the privilege to build the team. And then that's when you brought me in, photo editor, Bridges as senior editor, Aaron Draplin as art director. Chief ran all the, the business side, the sales, and
he did all the slimy stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
But we had it was an all-star team, honestly. Chief
it was.
You were
he was
the best at the editor job at the time, and you built the best possible team around you, and that, again, coming full circle, that's where my real career began in snowboarding, at Snowboarder there. So I thank Rob Z and all the folks along the way.
Yeah. So tell me a story about kind of like one of your first, like in your first year working there, something that was like kind of like a challenge that you had to step up to and execute on, something that you thought maybe was above your pay grade, or something that you just had to do in order to help the mag succeed. Because I think back then it was like different. I mean, really, it's like we all got paid to do it, but it wasn't, I don't think that was any of our like top priorities, is like what we could do with the money. I mean, I didn't go on vacation the entire time. I just, like, when I left Snowboarder, I had all my vacation time and just cashed it out.
Yeah. That was nice. I got the same thing too. Got a check for like $6,000 or something. And
yeah,
I never took a vacation day, but you felt like you're on vacation every single day, just at work. I think the first issue where the whole team was intact, meaning you and Bridges, Draplin, and I, Chief, and was the first issue right from the cover. It was an Andrew Muddy cover doing a bomb job off that parking structure in Boston, I think it was.
Yep.
And
Gary Land's only cover photo ever.
Yeah. So not only a game changer type of image of Muddy doing something that no one had really ever done before in snowboarding. So you had the kind of never been done type of cover. That was just the wow factor. So that was amazing. That same issue was JP Walker was the feature interview. And, and I learned the previous year when I was just like kind of the intern, I learned everyone has a way that they put the magazines together. And I remember there was a bit of if you're doing an interview on an athlete, in the end, it was like the editor's choice to choose the photos that made it in. And, and to kind of have that more kind of, journalistic approach. And I saw that backfire a couple of times, in the year I was just as an intern, just kind of watching and studying. And so, God, you can imagine, JP was at the top of his game then. And my first issue really as the photo editor, and I was just scared shitless, to put this big interview together. And but I remember what I learned from that previous year when I was just the intern of like, the riders want to be involved. It's their career. Some riders, most riders will be lucky to get one interview in a big magazine in their whole career, and so there's a lot riding on that, right? So I took the approach of make this a collaborative effort. Instead of being scared of JP and being scared of what he might think of the photos that I might choose of him, get involved with him, have him come in and look through the photos. We could study them together. He can tell me the backstories behind the photography, the sequences and the photos that he got. Rob Mathis was a he brokered that whole thing and made it happen. Rob had shot, I think, all the photos of JP anyways. And so between Rob and I, who had a good relationship, we kind of brokered this way of collaborating to produce this interview. And I think, I guess, Mark, it was your idea to bring in Jared Eberhard to do the layout.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who initiated that, but
I did. We had like a guest graphic designer, I think, in almost all those issues, as well as Draplin's first season.
Yeah, and I think JP probably had a little bit to say in that, and Rob as well maybe. But it was like, bring in, if you got this big feature interview, bring in a guest all-star designer to lay it out, somebody who JP was comfortable with. And again, it was that collaborative effort. So if JP
totally salted Draplin, by the way, in his first issue. He was like, "I'm not good enough for this." He's like, "No, you're not, Draplin. You're not."
It was better than anything else Draplin had laid out that first issue, and that.
Yeah, Jared's the man.
It's amazing. Jared knocked it out of the ballpark.
Yeah,
but I knew that JP came away feeling really good about it because the photos were run and that he wanted to see run. He had a designer that he was comfortable with laying it out, and it created that kind of set the pace for really so much of the way I put magazines together nowadays. It's not about my way or the highway, or one guy's opinion is more valuable than the other, and that's really important for Mary Walsh, Mark Lavin, Basher, myself, Davey. We're all in this together. All of our voices are equal. And I know that's the way to go. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're the photo editor of Snowboarder, and you were there for how many years as photo editor?
I guess it was 5.
5. Okay, what was like one of the highlights of like you being involved with snowboarding, being like a Grom, someone who like aspired to be involved? Now all of a sudden you're the photo editor of one of the major titles. What's an opportunity that you were able to take advantage of, being the photo editor that you would have never had not being a photo editor?
Yeah, I think two stories come to mind. I guess in chronological order, it was the Super Park, the Travis Rice breakout year. So without being associated with the magazine, I never would have been shooting at Super Park, but the Super Park in Mammoth, I think that was 2001. And that was a year Travis Rice was just 19-year-old kid. No one really heard of him. Maybe we heard the name, but he basically poached Super Park. He didn't have the official invite. And he came out and had that breakout year where he outrode everybody by a landslide.
Technically, Rich Goodwin secured his permission to come in. Yes, Rich Goodwin.
Okay.
Because he came to me and was like, "Hey, I got this kid. He's 16, son of a ski patroller." I was like, "Okay, I'm listening."
Yeah. So Travis came out of nowhere, and does the 117-foot backside rodeo off the jump that not one other rider in all of Super Park came even close to clearing, and he does just 2 huge trips, that and a backside 180, and just stomped both one try. And that put Travis on the map, and I was lucky enough, fortunate to be able to shoot that. I still have that sequence hanging on my wall in Mammoth, and it was great. That's where my relationship with Travis began, and we've been friends since. But that was just something mind-boggling to see just in person. Someone to go jump twice as far as anybody else and do the gnarliest shit like that anyone had really seen ever at that point.
Yeah,
so that was a really exciting moment. And then the other one was the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake. Just being able to witness the Ross Powers run, the big method. And so I was lucky enough, and again, I had the photo credential for the Olympics. Again, you would never get that credential not worked for, something like Snowboard Mag. But yeah, I had actually, I didn't even have the photo pass. I had the journalist pass. Funny story about the Olympics was that some sort of glitch happened, and so I only received there's 2 types of passes in the Olympics. There's a journalist pass and the photography pass. The difference between the two, at least back then, was that the photographer pass got you a little closer access, to the half pipe. The journalist pass had to be behind that, so it was farther away. But from an ego standpoint, I was, I forget who was shooting for Transworld. There might have been Nick Hamilton, but but Transworld had the photo pass and they had better access, and here I had the stupid journalist pass, and I'm a photographer, not a journalist, but I had to stand way in the back and shoot from there. So I was just jealous or envious, they didn't have the better pass. But anyway, what happens throughout that day, I ended up just borrowing a 500 millimeter lens from Canon that during the Olympics, you can get free gear like that for the day to use to shoot the events. So I had a big 500 lens, and I was still kind of a rookie at then, and I didn't even have a monopod. So this 500 millimeter lens, or these big
hand holding it,
gigantic things, and I don't know how much those weigh, a lot, and I had to hand hold it the whole day and shoot. So it was like by the end of the day, my left arm was just like ripped from holding this stupid lens all day. But yeah, watching Ross do that air, it really came out of nowhere, because and nobody had seen anything like that to that level. What was even more exciting that you couldn't experience on TV was the audience. I mean, there was about 30,000 spectators, I think, in the grandstands that day. And the way that it was set up was there's grandstands all, at the bottom, and adjacent side to the half pipe. And just to hear, I've never heard 30,000 people screaming their lungs out for cheering, and to see such spectacle is what Ross just did. And man, that gave me goosebumps, to be a part of that and experience that firsthand. And yeah, man, the energy was just electric.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, I would say that's when snowboarding arrived, as far as like, because we swept, it was the first time America had swept since 1956. And basically, like, all of a sudden, it was like corporate America could get behind it because it was kind of a safe bet for marketing. Like, America's going to do good here. We're going to win medals here. And so it became kind of a safe bet, and, a big wave that, like, Shaun White probably most effectively rode out of anybody, right. But he was the safest bet for the Olympics for a decade or more,
Until that next morning when Ross and JJ and Danny and you and me and Bridget were
Oh, you were there that night too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank the
we partied all night with those guys, and let's just say they got pulled. Well, why don't you tell the story?
Well, yeah, we just, celebrating the USA sweep, and everybody ended up back at a condo. I think it was Matt Barber, who was working at Red Bull. He was the first Red Bull marketing. I don't even know what his title was.
Yeah, marketing manager. There was like one marketing guy in all of Red Bull North America, and it was Matt Barber.
Yeah. Unlimited credit card, bottomless credit card. Yeah. Celebration turned into a kind of all night party, and the JJ Thomas, Danny, Cass, and Ross were supposed to be on the Today Show or one of those morning shows the following morning, and I think they had like a 8 a.m. call time or something, and still about 6 a.m. we're still going for it. And so I think the handlers, called them. I don't know exactly what went down because we had left, but somebody determined that they were way too drunk.
I may be able to confirm or deny that fact, depending on who's asking. Right. Okay. Well, I mean, beyond that, though, it's like, working in magazines, working in publications, like, you have access to like the entire sport. So I'm curious, like, for you personally, like, what is like your best day riding? Was it just like going in Mammoth, like when you were just kind of like snow bumming around, or was it like a trip you went on for one of the publications? I mean, what was your like pinnacle moment in participation in the sport?
Yeah, there's a couple of those. I'd say the most fun I ever have snowboarding is hands down just riding with my buddies. The guys who are my friends before I got in the industry. We could be riding Mammoth or any resort, doesn't even matter. And those are my true snowboarding friends. Those are the guys that if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gotten involved in the industry, because they my good buddy Aaron Hanlon, was from Mammoth. When I was starting shooting, learning the craft of photography, I'd go out with him all the time, and he was my subject. And he just was a ripping rider. He didn't really care about being a big pro, even though he was one of the best riders in Mammoth. And But yeah, we still ride to this day. Every last spring I got together with all these guys and we just rode Mammoth and just for fun. And those are still the best days, because it's the business side of you can put that aside. You can just enjoy snowboarding with your friends and just do it for fun. So those will always be my most favorite days still. I'd say near second these days is just going out riding with my kids, because again, like I said earlier, to be able to ride with your offspring and your kids who just, you can see the joy on their face, that flashes you back to when you first started snowboarding, and to be able to provide that to your children that you love so much and see how much joy it's giving them. That's right up there too. It's measured in a different way than riding with your buddies, but I get a lot. I really, really enjoy that nowadays.
Yeah.
And then I guess during the snowboarder years, I think probably most fun I had from a kind of rock star status, glamorous side was, bald face. It's just the most fun I've had. There's definitely gnarlier places to snowboard. There's places that can challenge you more, but as far as fun factor, you can challenge yourself there for sure. But as far as fun factor goes, that's a great time. I was lucky enough to, Jeff Pensiero tells a story, probably better than I, but I was lucky enough to be one of the first guys up there to experience it with Dan Hudson, who was a photographer, and one of the first crews to ever go out there when he was just still beginning. Wasn't even really full on lodge yet, and so we got the firsthand experience. Just Jeff as our guide, and before it really truly blew up. So I was really fortunate enough to be able to experience that from the very, very beginning. I'll take a day up there anytime. It's so fun.
Has the stress of working in the industry ever just made you feel like, okay, I just want to do this for fun, screw the business side of it. I want to just snowboard for fun like I did when I was 17, 18 years old?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Constantly, when I first started at snowboarder again, back in 2000, I always used to say, I got my dream job at snowboarder. And now I get to the two things I love the most, snowboarding and shooting photos. I do both of those. I snowboard less and I shoot photos less. I had this great job, but when you make a career out of something that you love so much and you turn it into a business, it does, it brings in a whole other element that you have to be mindful of, because if you're not careful, it can just completely take away the fun of it. And then you make yourself miserable. And then all of a sudden you become miserable, unintentionally. And so I think even at times I've taken little breaks from the industry, to take a break from, I think when I left Snowboard Mag in 2010, I took a little mini break in starting Access Media, but I just stepped away from the industry side. Back in 2016, the end of 2016, when I resigned from Transworld and Snowboarder, I relocated back to Washington, and I took a couple years off to just step away, because I was, quite frankly, I was burnt out. And it took a little bit of time being away to really appreciate everything that snowboarding was, which is, it's supposed to be fun. And not that I wasn't just burnt out at Transworld Snowboarder, but it was such a gnarly task, selling millions and millions of dollars of advertising, to where that controlled my life, and I wasn't even snowboarding, and I was not completely gotten away from why I started in this career in the first place. So it was a really important lesson to understand, to check yourself every now and again. I think we all do, to remind ourselves why we got involved in this in the first place. And what are you trying to get out of it? And, for me, it was, again, back to having fun, to be able to share those experiences with my friends and my family and my children and stuff. And the jobs and the careers have been nice. And I've gotten one of the luckiest guys ever to be able to have such a career. But if you lose sight of that, then it gets real not fun real quick.
So what kind of advice do you have for people who are maybe getting into the industry, trying to figure out a path in the industry? How do you keep it fun? How do you keep that passion level in excess of the workload? how do you keep that in balance or balance towards the fun side of things?
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. Just the word passion. We all get involved in snowboarding because we're passionate about it, right? So whether you're a writer, a photographer, or a podcaster, or a pro snowboarder, or whatever your entry level is into the sport, or whatever you do currently, it's like you got to maintain that passion and continue to feed that passion, and don't lose sight of it. And it's real easy to get distracted from it and get derailed from it at times. But you have to maintain that passion, because that's where brilliance will be made. Is when you're passionate about something, you're going to make the best podcast ever. You're going to make the best magazine ever. You're going to be the best snowboarder you can be if you're passionate and having fun doing it. And so I think my advice for young kids is that no matter if you want to get a job in the snowboarding industry at whatever level, that's great. Do it.
Don't quit. Run the other.
Just make sure you're passionate about it, and remind yourself of why why you started snowboarding in the first place. And again, I don't think any of us ever started snowboarding because I was like, I really need to make a career, and I really need to make $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million at it at some point. It's those thoughts never crossed my mind once. I just want to be able to snowboard. And that's turned into a career. So that's the old saying. Do what you love, and the money will follow. But and that's truly the case.
Yeah. Okay, so, you've done a lot in snowboarding. You've actually done some stuff outside of snowboarding. Maybe you could touch on that really quickly, and then I'll have a question for you, because you have actually, developed houses as well? Gotten into construction to some degree, something like that?
Yeah, to some degree, yeah. So my good buddy, Nate Deshane, who's also, he's a writer. He's been involved in the snow industry for a long time. He was just a snowboard bum like me and my friends in Mammoth, and that's how we became pals back in the day. And he was always a really colorful character, and he had a knack for writing and just delivering. He has a knack of talking about snowboarding in a way that is just funny, and it's relatable. And anyway, yeah. So over the years, he's written for Transworld and Snowboarder and Snowboard Mag. He was an editor for Snowboard Mag for several years. He's written for ESPN and X Games and Unit and lots of brands, writing copy for catalogs and things similar. But anyways, yeah, a few years ago, he kind of disappeared out of snow and started kind of traveling around doing something. Me and my buddies knew he was building something. We didn't even know what it was. And then about, 2.5 years ago, he kind of resurfaced and started showing us these pictures of these aircrete domes, these dome homes that he'd been building kind of all over the world, Spain and Peru and Costa Rica and Hawaii and all these exotic places. And describing it to me, I couldn't even understand what he was really building. But long story short, he's building these these dome homes. They kind of look like Luke Skywalker's home from the was it Tatooine in the original Star Wars. It looks similar like that. They look like an igloo kind of shape. The aesthetic is really, really different and very pretty and interesting. And anyway, he came to me a couple years ago and wanted to kind of take this building concept to the next level and make a little business out of it. He wanted help kind of starting a business, and turned to me for help in doing that. And I don't come from a building background, or I didn't at the time. And so that was basically, I'll teach him how to run a business. He teaches me how to build these dome homes, and we started a little company called Compass Home Design. And it's an awesome kind of side gig that we did for the last couple of years. And we built a couple of these homes, one in Colorado, another one in Arizona,